I woke to the sound of metal screaming. Not just the storm outside, something else. The alarm was blaring through the hull, echoing off the steel like a siren in a grave. I scrambled out of my bunk, boots half-laced, slipping on the slick floor as the trawler pitched hard to port. The wind was howling, waves pounding us like fists from below. Then I heard shouting, the deckhands, panicked. By the time I got topside, the deck was chaos. Rain whipped sideways. The winch was straining, cables groaning under the weight of a deep-sea net being pulled back from the dark. And it was too heavy, way too heavy. "Kill the crank," the captain yelled. "It's caught." But then it rose. Torn netting, shredded mesh flapping in the wind, and tangled in the center, something dark, slumped, moving. I couldn't tell what I was looking at. It wasn't fish. It wasn't wreckage. It wasn't human. But it was breathing. The others backed off. No one wanted to cut it free. I didn't, either. Because whatever we'd pulled from the deep, it wasn't dying. It was waiting. And that was the moment I realized. We should have never brought it aboard. 1 week earlier, I was broke, desperate, and looking for anything that paid under the table. When I saw the flyer for deckhands needed, no experience, cash on return, I didn't even think twice. I showed up at the docks the next day with a duffel bag, 0 sea legs, and a hangover the size of Anchorage. The boat was called the Valhalla Queen, 40 years old, patched in places with more rust than steel. But the money was decent, and the captain didn't ask questions. That was enough. There were 5 of us on crew, not including the captain. All rough, quiet types. Guys who'd seen too much or not enough. I learned fast to keep my head down. Fishing work was brutal. Lines froze, gear jammed. Saltwater tore skin open like razors. But after a few days, the rhythm settled in. Haul, gut, sort, repeat. The ocean was harsh, but predictable. Until the Iker sonar started acting up. At first, we thought it was a glitch. The screen would flicker, brief bursts of movement way below us, just beyond normal depths. Not fish, not schools, shapes, big ones. Moving too slow for marine life. Then came the interference, static, spikes on the monitor at odd intervals like something was pulsing under us. One of the crew joked that we'd found the Kraken. Another muttered something about black tides and went quiet. I tried not to think about it. But every night after that, the boat felt different. Not haunted, just watched. I'd catch glimpses out of the porthole, waves that didn't move right, shadows where moonlight should have been. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe paranoia. But the captain stopped joking too. He started marking strange sonar hits in a notebook, not telling us what he thought they were, just circling timestamps. Every time the readings got close, we'd move on without dropping nets. I didn't ask why. On our 4th day out, the blips returned, closer than ever. That night we dropped a deep water net anyway. I wish we hadn't. We dropped the net just after dusk. The captain didn't say much, just stared at the sonar, jaw clenched, one finger twitching against the railing like he was thinking of pulling the plug, but he didn't. He gave the nod, and the net sank into the black, uncoiling into depths none of us had charted before. I was on winch duty when it caught. At first, it was a soft tug. Then the line went tight, too tight. The winch groaned. The cable creaked like it was going to snap, tension building with every inch. We all gathered around, watching the line pull, groan, strain, shudder. The boat tilted under the weight. "What the hell is that?" someone asked. The hydrophone started, picking up noise, a low rhythmic pulse, not engine noise, not whale song. More like a heartbeat. Slow, wet, heavy. Then the net broke the surface. Shredded in places, torn like something had tried to claw its way out. But something remained, tangled deep in the mess. A shape. Roughly human-sized, but wrong. Pale, veined, draped in strands of what looked like kelp and translucent skin. Water poured off it like it had never seen air. I thought it was a whale calf at first, deformed, maybe dying. Then it moved, not the net, the thing inside it. A twitch in the arm. Or maybe that was a leg. Couldn't tell. No one spoke. No one dared. We just stared. And that's when the sea. Birds vanished. Dozens of them had been circling above the boat all day, trailing us like usual. But in one instant, gone. No squawks, no fluttering. Just empty sky. The air felt thick. Pressurized. The captain barked to cut the net, but the others hesitated. I think we all wanted to see what it was. Curiosity, fear, it didn't matter. Then it exhaled. Loud, wet, bubbling through the seaweed. The sound of something that shouldn't be alive, breathing in our air. It didn't thrash, didn't scream. It just waited. Like it had been caught. On purpose. We stored it below deck. Wrapped the torn net around it, locked the hold, and rigged a steel crate over the hatch. No one said a word about it. Not what it was. Not what to do next. The captain looked pale. Just muttered that we'd make port early, that no one was to go near the hold. We all agreed. No one argued. That night, I pulled graveyard. The ocean was calm. Too calm. No swells, no wind, just that flat, black water stretching in every direction, like it was watching us back. The engine thumped underfoot, steady and low. Everyone else was asleep or pretending to be. I made rounds, checked the winch systems, and stood watch by the wheelhouse. Nothing moved. Until the groaning started. Not the hull bending under waves. No, this was lower, deeper, like something heavy shifting against the metal from inside the ship. I froze. Then came the thudding. Rhythmic, wet. It was coming from the hold. I told myself to ignore it. Let the captain deal with it in the morning. But something drew me down. I grabbed a flashlight and made my way below, boots echoing through the steel corridors, the air thick with salt and something else. Rot. The hold door was shut, still chained, but I could hear breathing. Slow, ragged, dragging air like it was learning how. My hand shook as I reached for the latch. And then I saw them. Eyes. More than one, reflecting back through the slats in the crate. Faint, bluish, blinking in perfect sequence like it wasn't one creature, but many, or one that didn't know how to be one. I backed away slowly. The flashlight flickered. The ship groaned again, angry. Now. Pipes hissed. A door slammed behind me with no wind. I ran. Didn't stop until I was back topside, panting under the floodlights. The others didn't stir. I thought maybe I'd dreamt it. Maybe I was losing it. Then the thudding started again. Louder. And something laughed. By morning, Ben was gone. His bunk was still made. Boots by the door. No sign of struggle. No blood. Just gone. The captain ordered a full sweep, top to bottom, but we already knew. He wasn't on the boat anymore. We searched the decks in silence. No one said what we were thinking. The radio was next. Dead. Not static. Dead. As if something had cut the line clean. I tried the backup GPS. It spun in circles, coordinates glitching. Nothing outside but flat, endless water. No land, no signal. Just us. And we shouldn't have gone below. The captain and I went to check the hold again. We brought a strobe, hoping it would give us a better look without getting too close. The moment we flipped it on, I wished we hadn't. It was standing now. Tall. Elongated limbs stretching against the crate, skin gray and veined with glowing seams. Coral grew from its arms like bone tumors. Its chest rose with slow, wet breaths. But worst were the faces, not its own, but ours. Shifting across its skin like it was trying to remember how to be human. Then, it spoke. Not in some monstrous growl, not in an alien tongue. It used Ben's voice. Cold out tonight, it said. Real cold, the captain snapped. Lock the crate, welded it shut, ordered no one near it again. But we knew it was too late. We were already drifting. Later that afternoon, Harris went overboard. Just walked up the starboard side and threw himself off like he'd seen paradise below the waves. No splash, just silence. I looked over the edge and saw an oil slick turning red, blood red curling into the wake. We didn't recover him. The sky stayed gray. The wind died completely. No birds, no sun, no horizon. Just that steady thud from the lower deck getting slower. Heavier. At night I heard my own voice outside my cabin door. Laughing. And I wasn't laughing. I stayed up, shotgun across my knees, not daring to sleep. The others stopped talking, the engine sputtered, slowed. The lights flickered more often. And all I could think was, we didn't catch it. It let us find it. I don't know how many days it's been. The sun hasn't risen in what feels like forever. The engine gave out yesterday, or maybe the day before. I haven't eaten. There's no one left. Just me and the ocean. Always the ocean. The hold's empty now. I checked this morning, even though I swore I wouldn't. The crate's door was wide open. The metal twisted like something pushed out, not broken, not forced. Just opened like it never needed to be locked in the first place. I keep hearing things. Sometimes it's footsteps above deck. Sometimes it's my own voice calling my name from somewhere below. Sometimes it's breathing, deep, hollow, like something sleeping just beneath the waves. I tried the radio again. Nothing but static. I've started recording, hoping someone, anyone, might hear this, might know what we pulled up from the dark. We thought the ocean was empty. We thought, wait, hold on. Did you hear that? There's something. Static. The sound of water dripping. We thought the ocean was empty down there, but it's just been waiting for someone to listen. They don't blink, they don't breathe, and they never leave until sunrise, if you can still call it that when the sun hasn't shown its face in weeks. I've been out here for 2 months now, stationed alone at a weather monitoring post about 20 miles from the nearest outpost. It's part of a solar radiation study. Ironic, considering the sun disappeared weeks ago. Welcome to the month of darkness. It's a real thing. A stretch of time in winter when the sun dips low and never comes back up. Locals treat it like a seasonal quirk. Tourists romanticize it. But none of them stay long enough to see what the dark brings with it. They started appearing a week ago. At first. Just shapes in the reflection. I thought I was overtired. Then, one night, I turned from the stove and saw a face pressed to the window. Motionless, pale, not quite human. Just watching. Then the next night, there were 2. Now, there are 5. All different. All closer. They don't move. Not while I'm looking. But every night they're nearer to the glass. And somehow, I know they're not waiting to come in. They're waiting for me to open the door. The first week of the dark wasn't bad. I'd prepped well. Solar batteries, topped off, food stores checked, backup generator tested. My job was simple. Monitor atmospheric readings, log solar fluctuations, what little there were, and check in weekly via satellite radio. I liked the solitude. I'd taken this contract to get away, to be alone with the kind of silence you can't find in the city. Out here there's no traffic, no people, just wind, trees, and time. The darkness came slowly, one long sunset bleeding into perpetual twilight. After a few days my eyes adjusted. The world outside turned to silhouettes. The horizon vanished. The cold, though, that was different. Colder than expected. Colder than last year's records. Some mornings frost grew inside the windows. I'd wake to patterns on the glass like skeletal hands, curled and reaching. I blamed moisture, insulation, anything logical. Then tools went missing. Small things. A wrench, my field notepad, a knife I swore I left by the sink. I blamed fatigue. I started double-checking locks. Still, every night, I'd hear tapping dot not knocking, not wind dot tapping dot soft, erratic, like fingernails on glass dot. Then one night I saw it. Just a blur, a pale shape beyond the window. Eyes too wide, skin too smooth. Gone when I turned the light on. I told myself it was the snow reflecting strangely dot, but the next morning I found footprints in the frost. Only a few dot leading toward the window dot, none leading away dot. They came back the next night. 2 of them this time. Faces just beyond the edge of the porch light, unmoving. Eyes wide, lips pale, skin grayish, not like corpses. Just drained. Like wax masks trying to remember what it was like to be human dot. At first, I refused to look directly at them. I kept the curtains drawn, told myself I was imagining things. Stress, cabin fever, my mind filling in blanks where the world had gone too quiet. But curiosity gets under your skin, and on the 4th night, I looked. Really looked. 1 of them looked like my brother. Not exactly. Not enough to be sure. But the eyes, they were his. I haven't seen my brother in over a year. We're not even on speaking terms, but seeing that face half lit and still made something twist inside me. Grief? Guilt? I don't know. I set up a camera in the main room, pointed at the biggest window. I wanted proof. I wanted to catch them on film and convince myself this was real, or wasn't. I don't remember going to bed. I woke up on the floor the next morning. The camera was still running. Battery drained. Memory card. Wiped, not corrupted. Erased. The window was frosted over again. But this time, I found a handprint from inside. Later, comma. I flipped through my journal and found entries I didn't remember. Writing. Sentences that trailed off. Sketches of faces I can't recall drawing. Some were marked with names. People I haven't thought about in years. Some names I didn't recognize at all. Nothing out here makes sense anymore. The forest's gone. Silent. Even the ravens don't come close. My traps are untouched. No paw prints, no tracks. Just that same feeling every night. They're waiting. And getting closer. I covered the windows on day 10. Cardboard, blankets, duct tape, anything to block the glass. The frost was growing from the inside now, thick layers forming overnight. Curling in patterns I swore looked like fingerprints and writing I couldn't read. The cold felt deliberate, like it was leaking in rather than being kept out. But that didn't stop them. They started showing up in reflections. The bathroom mirror was the first. I caught it while brushing my teeth, movement just behind me, a flicker. I turned fast. Nothing there. But when I looked again, the reflection lingered half a second too long. My own face. Lagging. The eyes not blinking when I blinked. Then the power started cutting out. No pattern. No surge. Just gone. Each time it happened, the lights dimmed, in rhythm, like syncing to my pulse. I'd feel it thump in my chest, then see the bulb above me flicker in time. Like the house was breathing with me. Or for me. Watches stopped working. Clocks blinked 3:33 a.m. and froze. I'd lose hours. I'd sit down to write and find whole pages written I couldn't remember, handwriting that almost looked like mine, just not quite. In the faces. They changed. They started feeling. Smiling when I cried. Frowning when I tried to speak. Once one began to weep, pressing its palms to the glass as if begging to be let in. I nearly opened the door that night. Not out of fear. Out of loneliness. Then came the dream. At least I think it was a dream. I walked through the cabin, pitch black, no lights. I knew something was wrong because I couldn't hear the wind. I reached the front window and peeled the blanket back. It was me. Outside. Not dressed like me, not exactly. Not moving, just there. My face staring back, but different. Smiling too wide, eyes too open. I woke up standing at the door, hand on. The knob. The mirror across the room fogged up on its own. And a sentence appeared written backwards in the condensation. It's warmer out here. The knocking started 3 nights ago. 3:33 a.m. on the dot. Always soft, always measured, like fingertips politely tapping, waiting to be let in. Not pounding, not demanding, just patient. Too patient. The first night, I ignored it. Pulled the blankets over my head like a child, heart thudding loud enough I swore they could hear it. The second night, the knocking came from every wall, not just the door, window, back wall. Even the ceiling. Tap, tap, tap. In perfect sync. Then came the whispering. Not outside. Inside. My own voice. Whispering things I don't remember saying. Pleading, reasoning, promising. I found my tools rearranged that morning, laid out in concentric circles around my bed like offerings. My hammer was suspended from the ceiling fan cord by its handle, swinging gently even though the air was still. And then, they came in. I don't know how. I never heard the door open, never saw glass break. But I woke up in the chair by the stove and they were just there. Standing. 5 of them, maybe 6, all frozen in place like mannequins. Pale faces, human but incomplete, too smooth, or stretched, or unfamiliar. One looked exactly like the girl I dated in college. Another had my grandfather's old coat. But the last one, that one looked like me. Older, tired, eyes sunken, smiling gently, like someone watching a memory replay. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I just sat there, staring at myself. It raised a hand. Not threatening. Just reaching. And I almost reached back. I don't know why. I was terrified. But somewhere beneath the fear was this hollow ache. Like it understood something about me I'd forgotten. Like it wasn't here to hurt me. Just to witness me. To be me. I blinked, and they were gone. The door was still locked. The windows still boarded, but I knew they hadn't left. I still hear the knocking every night. Still hear my voice whispering from behind the mirror. I stopped checking the time. I stopped writing in the journal. It always ends up saying the same thing now. Let it in. I don't know how long it's been since I last slept. Maybe 3 days, maybe more. Time doesn't move here anymore. Not really. The clocks don't tick. The wind doesn't howl. Even the generator stopped trying. The windows are gone now. Not boarded. Gone. Just black walls where glass used to be. Like the cabin gave up pretending to keep them out. I haven't seen my reflection in over a week. Every mirror, screen, polished surface. Black. Like the world no longer wants to show me to myself. But I feel them. Every second. Watching from corners that shouldn't exist. Breathing behind me even when I'm alone. They don't knock anymore. They don't need to. They're inside the walls, beneath the floor, behind my eyes. I've stopped writing in the journal. This is the last entry. Just in case someone finds it, just in case anyone ever comes back here. I know what they want now. They've been patient, gentle even. But I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of pretending I'm not already one of them. So tonight, I'm opening the door. And if they're still out there, come in. The sun never came back, but something else did. The wind was so cold it felt like it was carving into my skin, slicing straight through the thick parka I'd buried myself in. I stood frozen in the glow of the station's lone floodlight, watching my breath curl into the black Alaskan night. Somewhere beyond the wall of pines, something moved. I couldn't see it, but I heard it. Low, guttural, and wrong. A sound that didn't belong to any animal I knew. My hands trembled around the flashlight, the beam quivering as if the darkness itself was breathing. I should have stayed inside. I should have listened. But I didn't take this job to be afraid. When I'd signed up to work at a remote research station in Alaska, I imagined adventure, solitude, and a fat paycheck. I told myself I could handle months of snow in silence. I thought the hardest part would be boredom. Yet here I was, standing in the biting cold, heart hammering in my throat, staring into a forest that suddenly felt alive. Something snapped, In the distance, like a branch breaking under weight, I stumbled backward, reaching for the station door, but froze when I heard it. My name, whispered from the trees. 3 days earlier, I'd been sitting in a cramped bush plane, staring out. The window at an endless sheet of white. The pilot barely spoke, his jaw locked tight as he flew us deeper into nothingness. By the time we landed on the icy airstrip, I realized I wasn't just isolated. I was cut off from the world entirely. No cell service, no roads, just a scattering of metal buildings clinging to a frozen plain surrounded by miles of black forest and jagged peaks. Dr. Keller, the station lead, met me with a handshake so brief it felt like a warning. He didn't smile. Nobody did. The other researchers gave me nods, eyes glazed with exhaustion as though they'd already been here too long. The station itself was claustrophobic. Narrow halls lined with peeling paint, a mess hall that smelled faintly of diesel, and sleeping, quarters barely larger than coffins. That night, I noticed the signs. Bold red letters posted on every wall. Stay indoors after dark. Lock all doors. Do not respond to voices outside. At first I thought it was a joke, some hazing ritual for newcomers. But when I laughed, no one joined in. The days dragged quickly into a rhythm. Snowstorms rolled in like walls of fog, sealing us in darkness. The sun barely skimmed the horizon before vanishing, leaving the world submerged in a permanent twilight. The generator's hum became my lullaby. Meals were silent affairs, the others avoiding conversation as if words wasted warmth. On my second night, I heard something. A faint knock against the dorm window, followed by a whisper so soft it might have been the wind. I peered out, expecting frost patterns or blowing snow. But the glass was clear, empty, just blackness stretching forever. I mentioned it at breakfast, but Keller's face hardened. You imagined it. Don't look outside after dark, he said flatly. His words sank into me like ice. It was then I realized this place wasn't just lonely, it was wrong. The silence here felt heavy, pressing against the walls like the snow itself was listening. And though I tried to shake it off, I couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling that the rules weren't for show. They were warnings. By the end of the first week, I'd memorized every creak of the station's floorboards. The isolation was suffocating, like we were buried alive under snow. Communication lines went down during a blizzard, and Keller announced it could take weeks before they were restored. No phone calls, no internet. Just us and the howling wind. The noises started small, soft crunches outside, like footsteps pacing in the snow. One night I heard something scrape against the siding, a slow drag that set my teeth on edge. I told myself it was a branch, maybe an animal, but the forest felt too still for that. Even the wildlife seemed to have vanished. That same night, I woke to a whisper so faint it barely existed. My name, drawn out like someone was standing inches from the window. I pulled the blanket over my head and stayed frozen until dawn. Over breakfast, I brought it up again. The researchers exchanged glances but said nothing. Keller finally muttered, "You're hearing the wind. It plays tricks." His voice was calm, but his hands were shaking. Later, I caught Dr. Ling, one of the botanists, staring at the tree line, through a slit in the blinds. Her face was pale, her lips moving silently. When she noticed me, she shut the blinds and whispered, "Don't look. If you hear it, don't look." I laughed nervously, but she didn't smile. That night I locked my door for the first time. The weather worsened, storms swallowing the station in white. The generators flickered, and every shadow felt alive. At times I swore I could hear breathing outside, slow and heavy, matching the rhythm of my own. I'd press my ear to the door and feel vibrations like something large was moving just beyond it. By the fourth night, paranoia had settled over everyone. The halls were silent, lights dimmed to save power. No one lingered in the common areas. I noticed scratches near the main entrance, deep grooves etched into the steel like something had clawed at it. I started sleeping with my boots on, flashlight in hand, waiting for the knock I was sure would come again. Because every night, like clockwork, the voice returned. Soft, patient, always calling my name. On the sixth night, curiosity overpowered fear. I sat on the edge of my bunk, heart racing, listening to the voice calling my name through the window. It was clearer now, warmer, like a friend coaxing me outside. Against every warning, I crept to the blinds and lifted them just enough to see . What I saw still haunts me. At first, it looked like one of the researchers, Jonas, the quiet tech guy, standing at the edge of the floodlight. He wasn't wearing a coat, just a thin shirt that fluttered in the wind. But as my eyes adjusted, details sharpened. His limbs were wrong, too long, bending unnaturally at the joints. His head tilted at an impossible angle, and though he stood perfectly still, his voice carried to me like he was whispering right into my ear. My breath caught. He, or it, smiled, a stretched, unnatural grin, and took one slow step forward. I stumbled back, yanking the blinds shut. That night, the generator flickered and died, plunging the station into darkness. Panic rippled through the halls. People shouted, scrambled for flashlights. I found Keller in the control room, frantically switching breakers. "They're close," he muttered, voice trembling. "You looked, didn't you?" He wouldn't meet. My eyes. Dr. Ling appeared, pale as paper, clutching a rifle. She hissed at me. "You brought it to us. It knows you now." Her words chilled me to the bone. She told me fragments of a story, a predator older than the trees, something that mimicked voices to lure people out. They'd been studying patterns in the forest, sightings whispered among trappers and locals, but no one had proof. Until now. Barely slept that night, every creak in the building making my stomach clench. The snowstorm outside howled, rattling the windows. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls, twisting in the flicker of emergency lights. Somewhere out there, it was waiting. At dawn. Jonas's bed was empty. The door leading outside had claw marks around the handle, and a single set of footprints vanished into the tree line. We never saw him again. The station felt smaller after that, like the walls were closing in, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the thing outside wasn't hunting us at random anymore. It was hunting me. The next night, the station fell apart. The creature prowled closer, scraping along the siding, rattling doors, testing every lock. The others huddled in the mess hall, whispering prayers or arguing in hushed voices. I sat with my back to the wall, flashlight clenched in my fist, ears straining for every sound. When the power cut completely, panic erupted. Someone screamed, and the sound echoed through the halls like gunfire. Keller barked orders, but no one listened. In the chaos, a window shattered in one of the labs, a gust of icy air slamming through the building. I saw movement, a tall, hunched shadow slipping inside. "Run," Ling whispered. We scattered like frightened animals. I bolted down a corridor, boots slipping on the icy floor, heart hammering against my ribs. The emergency lights barely glowed, and the world dissolved into darkness. Behind me, I heard it. Footsteps, slow but deliberate, each one louder than the last. Bursting through the back door, I plunged into the blizzard, snow instantly blinding me. My lungs burned with cold air as I stumbled across the frozen plain, guided only by a flickering beam from my dying flashlight. The wind carried whispers, my mother's voice, my own voice, calling me closer to the tree line. I forced myself away, half running, half falling, until I spotted another structure, an abandoned weather outpost half buried in snow. I crashed through the door, barricading it with whatever I could find, chest heaving as I fumbled for the dusty radio on the desk. The static crackled like laughter. "Help," I whispered into the mic, voice shaking. "We're under attack, please." A long pause answered me. Then softly my own voice replied through the static, "We're coming. Just open the door." I dropped the radio, heart pounding. In my ears. The wind howled outside, then stopped, replaced by a slow rhythmic knock on the door. I backed away, my breath ragged, the beam of my flashlight catching movement under the crack, something shifting, crouching, waiting. The knocking, turned into scratching, then silence. I pressed myself against the far wall, clutching a rusted flare gun I'd found. I didn't know if it would help, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't making it out without a fight. They found me 2 days later, half frozen in the weather outpost, clutching that useless flare gun like it was a lifeline. The rescue team said they'd received no radio calls from our station, no distress signals. When they arrived, the research building was empty. No signs of struggle, no footprints except mine. Every bed was made, every door locked from the inside. I told them what I'd seen, but they only exchanged worried looks. Hypothermia, they said, isolation, cabin fever. I didn't fight them. It was easier to let them believe I was crazy. They sent me home and I thought I'd escaped. But some nights when the world outside is quiet, I hear that same soft knock at my apartment door. I never open it, never look, but I feel the presence on the other side, waiting. I've stopped sleeping near windows. I've stopped answering calls if I don't recognize the number. Yet deep down, I know it's patient. It followed me from that frozen wasteland, and it won't leave until I step outside. Last night, I heard it again. My name whispered from the shadows of the parking lot. I shut off the lights. And I prayed it wouldn't come closer. I don't tell this story to scare people. I tell it because I need someone, anyone, to believe me. Something happened in Alaska that I can't explain, and every time I close my eyes, I still see that place. Still hear what I heard. This was supposed to be a solo trip. Just me, my camera, and miles of untouched backcountry. I've always been drawn to abandoned places, ghost towns, rusted-out mills, forgotten structures swallowed by time. There's something beautiful about decay. Something honest. So when I read about an old mining town buried deep in the interior, one not listed on any tourist map, I thought I'd struck gold. No trails, no roads, just a few cryptic posts from off-grid hikers and an old geological survey that mentioned a settlement called New Briar, abandoned since the late 60s. I marked it, packed up, and headed out alone. When I got there, I expected silence. Emptiness. Maybe a couple of creaking doors and wind through broken windows. But that's not what I found. The place wasn't silent. It wasn't empty. And by the time I realized something was wrong, I was already too far in to turn back. Alaska has this way of making you feel small. Like the trees have been standing longer than you've been alive, and the mountains are watching, judging. I landed in Fairbanks and spent 2 days prepping, maps, gear checks, extra rations. The forecast was clear. No one knew exactly where New Briar was, but I triangulated its possible location using old mining records, word-of-mouth blogs, and a post from a retired bush pilot who said he saw roofs in the trees while flying low back in 87. The trail in was brutal. No signage, just raw wilderness. My GPS struggled under the tree cover, and after the first 6 miles, I didn't see any more boot tracks, only mine. That solitude was intoxicating. Until it wasn't. I found New Briar just before sunset. The forest thinned into a valley, and there it was, tucked against the base of a cliff half swallowed by trees. Rotting cabins, rusted mining carts, collapsed support beams, dozens of structures, maybe more, hidden in shadow. I stood there, breath fogging, just staring. It looked frozen in time, like the miners had packed up and vanished overnight. But here's the first thing that didn't make sense. The buildings weren't all collapsed. Some were weather-worn, sure, but others looked maintained. One had a new tarp over the roof. A shovel leaned against a wall, and there was a stack of chopped wood beside a door. I told myself someone else must have come out here recently, maybe hunters, or some survivalist playing mountain man. But I didn't see a soul. I picked the most solid-looking bunkhouse and set up inside. There were metal frame beds inside, rusted but intact, broken lanterns, even a pair of boots shoved, under a cot, dust everywhere but not thick enough for 60 years. As the sun dipped, the cold crept in. I built a fire in the old stone hearth, cooked a freeze-dried meal, and logged the day's photos. The isolation buzzed in my ears, but I convinced myself that was just adrenaline. Then I heard something. Not wind, not wildlife. Something metallic, clinking, maybe 20 yards away. I grabbed my flashlight, opened the door, and scanned the darkness. Nothing. But when I turned to go back inside, the fire I'd built was out. I didn't sleep much that first night. I relit the fire, telling myself it must have gone out on its own. Bad airflow, maybe. But the logs weren't burned through. They were just cold, like someone had smothered them. Still, I stayed. Told myself I was being paranoid. Remote places can mess with your head. They amplify everything, every creak, every gust of wind, every sound that doesn't belong. So I locked the door from the inside, zipped myself into my bag, and tried to convince my brain to shut up. At around 2 a.m., I woke up to a sound I'll never forget. Not a branch cracking or an animal scuttling. This was deliberate. Heavy. Rhythmic. Like boots. Actual boots walking slowly across the wooden porch outside the cabin. Step, pause. I didn't move. Just stared at the ceiling and held my breath. The footsteps stopped. Then nothing. No retreating sound. No door creaking. Just silence. When I finally got the nerve to check, there was no one outside. But the porch had a thin layer of frost, and someone, or something, had left footprints. Big ones. Human. Leading away from the bunkhouse into the tree line. I should have left then. But I didn't. Curiosity, stupidity. Maybe both. After sunrise, I decided to look around in daylight. Maybe I'd find a logical explanation. Another hiker, a trapper, anything. New Briar stretched deeper than I thought. There were side alleys between cabins, a rusted pulley system that once hauled carts up the hill, and what looked like a general store with half the roof caved in. But it was what I found behind the main office building that made my blood run cold. A shed. Newer looking, like it had been rebuilt recently, door padlocked. And behind it, buried beneath a tarp and brush, was a generator. It wasn't running, but the fuel canisters beside it were full, fresh, no dust, no snow. I leaned in and caught the faintest smell of gasoline. Someone was here. Maybe still is. Back at my bunkhouse, I noticed something else. A camera tripod. My tripod was knocked over, and one of my SD cards was gone. I didn't lose it. I don't misplace things. That card was zipped inside my pack. I hadn't just stumbled into someone's camp. I packed up right after that. No more photography, no more exploring. I wanted out. I'd marked my route on a topographic map, dropped GPS waypoints along the way in, and memorized key landmarks. Leaving should have been easy. But nothing looked the same. The trail I came in on was gone. I followed my first waypoint north, only to hit a wall of downed trees, freshly cut like someone had intentionally blocked the path. My GPS was glitching, freezing at 0 elevation, then jumping hundreds of feet. I thought it was satellite interference until I realized something else. Every direction I turned led me back toward New Briar. Like the trail was folding in on itself. I started to hear things. Not loud, just faint, almost beneath the sound of the wind. Voices, whispering, like a conversation carried on the breeze, but not quite in English. Not a language I recognized. I stopped, spun around, scanned the trees. That's when I saw him. About 40 feet away, between two pines, just standing there. A figure, tall, unmoving, dressed in heavy winter gear. But the face, it was covered by an old miner's mask, the kind with circular glass eye holes and a rusted filter. He didn't move. Just watched, I shouted. Asked who he was, if he needed help. Nothing. Then he stepped backward into the shadows, still staring, until he vanished behind the trees. I didn't chase. I ran. Full sprint, no plan, just away. I stumbled back into New Briar without even realizing it. Collapsed beside one of the rusted ore carts, lungs burning. And that's when I understood. They weren't trying to keep me out. They were herding me back in. The town didn't feel abandoned anymore. It felt lived in, Like every window I passed had someone just out of sight behind it, watching. I checked my gear. My flare gun was still there, along with one emergency flare. My satellite beacon? Completely dead. Batteries drained, though I'd charged them that morning. I knew now. I wasn't just dealing with some squatter or mountain survivalist. This was something older. Something organized. I waited for the sun to drop, and when the cold returned with it, so did the noises. The whispers, the movement between the buildings, footsteps pacing, metal tools dragging, doors creaking open, then slamming shut. They wanted me scared. It was working. I barricaded myself inside what looked like an old foreman's office. Small, sturdy, no windows, just one door. I shoved a metal filing cabinet in front of it and sat in the corner, holding the flare gun like it was a loaded weapon. My head was spinning. I kept replaying every mistake I made that brought me here, thinking this place was forgotten, believing I was alone. I didn't sleep. I don't think I even blinked. Around midnight, the knocking started. Not pounding, just light taps. First on the far wall, then on the door, then from the roof. Like they were mapping the structure, testing me, hunting by sound. I held my breath every time. Then came the dragging. Something heavy scraping across the gravel outside. I didn't dare peek. Whatever they were doing out there, I wasn't about to let them know I was still alive. I just clutched the flare gun tighter and waited for it to stop. But it didn't stop. Just before dawn, I heard the soft creak of the door handle turning, slow, deliberate. The cabinet held, but I could hear someone breathing on the other side. Then silence. Waited. 5 minutes. 10. Finally, I inched forward, kicked the cabinet aside, and flung the door open with the flare gun raised. There was no one there. Just a mining helmet sitting on the doorstep. Old, dented, caked in soot, but the inside lining looked new, like someone had just taken it off. And under the brim was my missing SD card. I snapped. I didn't even grab my pack. I stuffed the card into my pocket, fired the flare into the sky, and ran. I didn't know which direction. I just moved. Through the trees, over frozen streams, crashing through brush until my legs gave out. I crawled for part of it. Eventually, I found a frozen animal trail, followed it until I saw a ranger station sign nailed to a pine tree, half buried in snow. When they found me, I was dehydrated, babbling about masks and footprints and whispering trees. They thought I was in shock. Maybe I was. But I know what I saw. That mining town isn't abandoned, it's hidden. They flew me out by helicopter the next day. I was 20 miles off course, frostbitten, and barely able to speak. The official report chalked it up to disorientation, exposure and isolation-induced hallucinations. A common thing, they said, happens to solo hikers all the time. But I know what I saw. I've gone over every photo I took before the card went missing. Half of them were corrupted. The rest? Empty buildings, overgrown trails. Nothing that proves what happened. Nothing that shows the man in the mask. But in one shot, just one, there's something reflected in the window of a cabin behind me. Silhouette. Watching. I've tried to research New Briar since I got back. It's not listed on any modern maps. The old ones say it was shut down after a safety incident in 1966. No details, no survivor accounts. Just a single line in a mining registry that says, "Operations ceased. Site no longer secure." Don't know who or what is out there. But if you're ever deep in the Alaskan backcountry and stumble across a town that isn't on any map, don't go in, don't take photos, don't ask questions, just turn around. Because it's not abandoned, it's waiting. I've been back for 6 months now and I still can't sleep through the night. People say the Alaskan wilderness is pure, untouched. But that's a lie. It's not untouched. It's just hiding something. My name's Connor. I'm a travel photographer, was anyway. I've shot jungles in Peru, ghost towns in Arizona, even tagged along with storm chasers in Tornado Alley. But none of that stuck with me like what happened out there, deep in the backcountry north of the Yukon River. Was supposed to be gone a week. Just me, my gear, and a local guide named Jonah, who knew the terrain better than any GPS ever could. Quiet guy, weathered. Said he'd grown up out there, learned to track caribou before he could write his name. 5 days in, he vanished. No scream. No struggle, no broken branches. Just gone. And the way the silence moved in after, it was like the forest knew he was missing. They never found his body. No one believes me when I tell them what I saw. But if you're listening to this, just promise me one thing. If you ever find yourself that far north, and the woods go quiet, don't move. Found Jonah through a message board for off-grid expeditions. No website, no business card, just an email, a few grainy photos of him standing beside moose carcasses, and a dozen glowing reviews that all said the same thing. He'll get you there, and he'll get you back, if you listen. I emailed him, late one night, half on impulse. I'd been stuck in a rut, burned out, broke, and scrolling through reels of guys doing survival content with fake scrapes on their faces. I wanted something real, raw. So when he replied the next morning, short and to the point, leave Fairbanks by 6, bring layers, nothing orange. I said yes before I even thought it through. He met me at a dusty gas station, leaned against a beat-up pickup with a pair of dead eyes that didn't match the living man. He shook my hand once, firm grip, then tossed my bag into the truck. Bed like it weighed nothing. Said 3 words before we hit the road. Don't talk much. It took us 10 hours by road, then another 2 by foot to get where he wanted. A place he called The Cut, a flat of mossy tundra split by black pine where the wind didn't touch the trees and the air had this stillness, like everything around you was waiting. We made camp on the edge of a clearing. No cell signal. No trail markers. Just a fire pit ringed with stones and a tarp strung low between 2 trees. Jonah moved like he'd done it 1,000 times. I fumbled with my gear like it was my first day out of the city. He didn't laugh, didn't offer help. Just watched. That first night, I asked him why he never used GPS. He didn't look up from the fire. Because things out here move, he said. Sometimes a river's not where you left it, best to trust the bones. I didn't know what that meant, but I nodded like I did. Then he tossed a handful of something into the flames, smelled like crushed bark, and muttered under his breath. Words I didn't recognize. That night, I slept cold, even wrapped in 3 layers. Not from the wind, but from something else, something underneath it. By the 3rd day, I realized something was wrong. Not in a dramatic horror movie way. Not yet. But in the subtle kind of wrong that creeps up slow. Like noticing you haven't seen a single squirrel, or that the air smells different just before a storm you never see. We hiked north along a game trail Jonah said caribou used to follow, but there were no tracks, no droppings, no scat, just dirt and moss and silence. I asked him if it was too early in the season. He didn't answer. I started taking photos, wide angles of the tundra, silhouettes of trees against the cloudy sky. Everything looked beautiful on screen, but in person, dead, like a painting pretending to be wild. That's when I saw the first symbol. It was carved into a birch tree, 3 vertical lines crossed by 1 jagged slash, fresh, deep, like it was hacked in with a hunting knife. I pointed it out, thinking maybe it was a native trail marker or something. Jonah stared at it too long. Then he stepped off the trail. Pack up, he muttered. We're moving camp. I asked him why. He just shook his head. Too many roots here. We walked until nightfall, made camp in a tighter cluster of trees where the sky barely showed. He didn't build a fire this time, just lit a lantern and hung it low. I asked if he'd seen that symbol before. He hesitated. My grandfather used to call it a ward, he said. Meant something was already claimed. Claimed by who? I asked. He looked at me, really looked, and for the first time since I met him, I saw fear in his face. Don't ask questions you want answers to. That night I barely slept. Something moved just outside the tarp, footsteps so light they almost didn't register. I thought it was Jonah taking a piss until I looked across the camp and saw him sitting perfectly still, his eyes wide open. He saw it too. I whispered his name. He didn't move. The thing, whatever it was, never stepped into the light. It just circled. Slowly. Like it was waiting for one of us to step out. By morning, it was gone. But Jonah looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. I woke to silence. Not the kind you get in nature. No birds, no wind, not even the rustle of trees. This was heavier, pressed in around me like the forest itself was holding its breath. Jonah was gone. His bedroll was still there, boots, backpack, rifle, all untouched. The lantern had burned out, but the coals in the fire pit still glowed faint red. He hadn't left hours ago. He'd left recently. Or something had taken him recently. I shouted his name. Once. Twice. No answer. The woods swallowed my voice like it never existed. At first I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he went to scout. Maybe he found game. Maybe this was part of his weird guide routine. Test the client under pressure. But Jonah wasn't the kind of man who played games. I grabbed his rifle and started walking. I followed the faint impression of his boots into the trees, then lost them in a patch of moss so thick it looked untouched. Not flattened, not broken. Just erased. That's when I saw it. Not directly. More like I noticed it. A shape between the trees, still as stone. Too tall to be a person. Too thin to be a bear. I froze. It didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stood there, like it had always been there. I raised the rifle. It was gone. I spun in every direction. Nothing. No branches snapping. No birds startled. Just that dead, choking quiet. I don't remember running, but I found myself back at camp, gasping. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. All I could hear was my own heart pounding in my ears. And then I heard Jonah's voice. Connor. Whispered, just once, like it was caught on the wind. I whipped around. Nothing. No footprints. No sign he'd returned. But the voice had come from deeper in the woods. I almost followed it. Almost. But something in my gut stopped me. That voice. It was right, but off. Like someone doing a perfect impression, except the soul was missing. I stayed put, clutching that rifle until the sky turned gray and cold. Jonah didn't come back. But the whisper did. Again. And again. Each time. It got a little closer. I broke camp before sunrise. No fire. No food. Just grabbed what I could and started walking. South, I thought. Back the way we came. But nothing looked the same anymore. The trees leaned in closer. The moss was thicker. And those carved symbols? They were everywhere now. On trunks. On rocks. Even scratched into the bark of trees I swear hadn't been there yesterday. Jonah had made them. I could tell. Same slash. Marks. Same depth. Some were fresh. Too fresh. Still oozing sap. He'd tried to mark a path. Or a warning. I followed them, hoping they led somewhere. But the deeper I went, the more wrong everything felt. The air buzzed like static. My ears popped like I'd climbed a mountain, except I hadn't gained an inch of elevation. I started hearing my name again, closer now. Clearer. Sometimes in Jonah's voice. Sometimes not. At one point, I stopped to drink from a stream, hands trembling so bad I spilled half the bottle. That's when I heard a splash, downstream, maybe 30 feet. I looked up. He was standing in the water. Jonah. Naked. Pale. Eyes wide and glassy like he was looking through me, not at me. He raised one arm, pointing toward the woods. I stood. He opened his mouth. But what came out wasn't sound. It was silence. A sudden, smothering hole of silence, like everything in the world stopped to let it through. I dropped the rifle. My knees buckled. I couldn't breathe. My ears rang. And then he smiled. Not Jonah's smile. Something else. Like his face forgot how a human mouth worked. I ran. I didn't look back. Branches whipped my face. My boots slipped in wet moss. I ran until my lungs burned, until the whispering stopped, until my legs gave out beneath me. I collapsed at the base of a slope, half conscious, sobbing into the dirt. That's when I saw the ranger sign. Tilted, weather-worn, half swallowed by undergrowth, but real. I followed a trail from there, barely wide enough for a snowmobile. It took me 2 more days to find a ranger outpost. I barely remember the last stretch. Just flashes of blood on my sleeve and something following me in the trees. Never close enough to see. But never far enough to forget. They flew me out by helicopter. Dehydrated. Frostbitten. Covered in scratches I don't remember getting. I told the rangers what happened, about Jonah, about the thing in the woods. They nodded, took notes, called it shock. They searched the area, found the campsite, my gear, even Jonah's footprints, up to a point. Then, nothing. Like the forest, swallowed him whole. The official report says he wandered off. Hypothermia, animal attack, some nonsense about disorientation in the wild. But I know what I saw. And it followed me. Back in Anchorage the first night, I heard the whisper again, just once, outside my motel window. Connor. I moved back to the lower 48, changed my number, deleted my blog, told myself it was trauma, memory playing tricks. Then, last week I woke up to find one of those symbols scratched into the paint on my front door. No footprints, no camera footage, just that same slash-marked sign still dripping with fresh sap. So here's my warning. If you ever find yourself deep in the Alaskan backcountry and you see those marks, don't follow them. Don't listen to the voice. And above all, never assume you're alone. Not out there. Not even now. Not even. The storm hit faster than I expected. I'd been hiking solo through the Talkeetna Mountains, no signal, no backup, just me and the map I'd printed from home. That was my thing, go off-grid, get lost, come back changed. But that afternoon, as the sky turned a bruised shade of gray and the wind came tearing down the slopes, I knew I'd miscalculated. Snow hit like a white wall. My boots vanished beneath it in minutes. Visibility? Gone. I could barely see my hand in front of my face. I knew if I didn't find shelter fast, I'd end up frozen stiff by morning. Then I saw it, half hidden beneath a copse of black spruce, slumped low to the ground like it was trying to hide. A cabin, old as hell, logs blackened by time, roof nearly caved in, no trail leading to or from it. Not even animal tracks, just there. No power, no markings, no sound. I should have turned around. I should have trusted that instinct, the deep-down chill that had nothing to do with the weather. But I didn't. I stepped inside that cabin. And, I swear to you, I don't think it ever wanted me to leave. The door groaned like it hadn't been opened in a century, but it gave way with a shove. Cold air rushed out, sharper than the storm outside, carrying the smell of old wood and something rotten. My boots crunched against a thick layer of dust mixed with pine needles that had settled inside like the cabin was frozen in time. The room was small, barely big enough to turn around in. A broken table leaned against one wall, cracked and worn, and a cast-iron stove sat cold in the corner, covered in rust and soot. On the floor, I spotted the remnants of old animal pelts, brittle and moth-eaten. It felt like stepping inside a ghost's memory. I dropped my pack near the door, hoping to light a fire in the stove for warmth, but the matches in my pocket were damp from the storm. After a few attempts, a tiny flame caught, flickering to life. The weak fire threw shadows that danced on the walls, making the carved logs seem like they were watching me. I tried the door to leave, but it was stuck, jammed tight with ice or something worse. Then, with a slow, deliberate creak, it slammed, shut behind me, the cold air vanishing instantly. I rattled the latch, but it wouldn't budge. Panic started to prick at the edges of my mind. Then, faint. A soft knock. Or was it a tap? Beneath the floorboards. I froze, heart hammering, straining to listen. Another tap, more insistent this time. I dropped to my knees, pressing my ear against the cold wood. The knocking grew louder, uneven, almost, like a desperate Morse code. I thought about calling out, but my voice caught in my throat. Outside, the storm's howl seemed to fade. The only sound was the tapping, echoing beneath my feet. A warning, or an invitation. The kind of sound that meant this cabin wasn't just a shelter. It was something else entirely. I didn't know it yet, but by morning I'd realize I wasn't alone. The fire sputtered out just as I was starting to calm down. Darkness swallowed the cabin, thick and absolute, except for the faint glow from my dying lighter. I grabbed my flashlight, but the batteries were weak, flickering like they might quit any second. I started pacing the room, trying to shake the growing knot in my stomach. My eyes caught the walls, scratched, gouged, and weathered. I hadn't noticed before, but strange carvings covered every inch of the logs. Symbols I didn't recognize, twisted shapes like old runes or tribal marks. Among them, I spotted letters. Faint, almost faded, but they spelled out something, names, dates, and then one caught me cold. My last name. How could that be? This cabin was supposed to have been untouched since the 1800s. Yet here was my name, carved alongside years I didn't understand. Outside, the wind had calmed, but footsteps echoed softly on the frozen snow. Barefoot. I crept to the window, heart thudding. No one was there, only the long shadows of the trees stretching in the moonlight. I looked back at the cabin. On the table, something caught my eye. A worn, leather-bound journal, thick with dust, but clearly placed carefully, as if waiting for me. I flipped it open. The handwriting was sprawling, dated 1871. It belonged to the original owner, a trapper named Elijah McGraw. His words were desperate, rambling about isolation, voices in the woods, and something watching, waiting. He warned of a creature that mimicked human speech, luring victims deeper into the wilderness. The journal spoke of bloodlines marked and cursed, with chilling accounts of men lost to madness and cold. I should have put the journal down, but I couldn't. The fire flickered again, then went out. The cabin plunged into darkness. That's when I heard it. The whispers. Soft, distant at first, then growing closer. And they weren't just voices. They sounded like me. The whispers circled the cabin like a slow wind, growing louder, more insistent. It was my voice, calling my name, soft, desperate, almost pleading. I dropped the journal, heart slamming in my chest. Every rational thought screamed to run, but my legs were frozen, stuck in place like the cabin itself was holding me there. The journal's words echoed in my mind. The thing in the woods feeds on loneliness. It mimics voices, traps souls. I wanted to laugh it off, but the fear crawling up my spine said otherwise. The air felt thicker, colder, like the cabin was closing in around me. I tried to steady my breathing, telling myself it was the storm, the wind slipping through the cracks. But the sound wasn't outside. It was inside, behind the walls, under the floor. I crawled over to the far corner where the floorboards looked looser, worn with age. Kneeling, I pressed my ear against the wood and the whispers became clearer. Fragments of conversations, cries for help, half-remembered names. And then a chill swept through me. One of the voices wasn't just calling my name. It was telling me to come closer. Suddenly, I heard a soft scrape, like nails dragging across wood. I spun toward the door. It was rattling now, as if something was trying to get in or maybe trying to keep me from leaving. I grabbed the journal again, flipping to the last entry. Elijah wrote about crawling into the crawl space beneath the floor when he heard the thing coming. He described finding something terrible down there, something he never named. Then he stopped writing. My mind raced. I could hear the footsteps, circling the cabin now slow and deliberate, moving just outside the windows, just beyond the walls. I didn't want to believe it, but something was out there, something waiting. And I had no idea if I'd make it through the night. I knew I had to get out. Now. The door wouldn't budge no matter how hard I pulled or shoved. It was like the cabin itself was holding me prisoner. My phone was dead. No signal. No chance of calling for help. Panic clawed at me, but I forced myself to think. There was only one other way out. The crawl space beneath the floor. I knelt by the loose floorboards, fingers trembling as I pried them up. A dank, putrid smell hit me. Rotting wood, earth, and something else. Cold air whispered from the darkness below. I grabbed my flashlight and shone it down the narrow hole. The beam caught something that froze my blood. A skeletal body lay crumpled, in the dirt, dressed in a tattered jacket. The same jacket I was wearing. My breath caught. My heart slammed so hard I thought it might burst. Next to the corpse, buried in the dirt, was my backpack. My stuff, my jacket. How could this be possible? I stumbled back, the flashlight trembling in my grip. The footsteps outside were louder now, circling faster, the sound of bare feet against snow echoing with unnatural rhythm. I glanced back at the floor toward that crawl space. A voice, mine, whispered from the darkness below, soft and mocking. Come down. I wanted to scream, but my voice was gone. The cabin seemed to pulse with cold. The walls groaned as if alive. I had to make a choice. Stay and wait for whatever was outside to break in, or crawl down into that hole and face whatever was down. There. Fear tangled with a strange, desperate curiosity. I dropped the flashlight. And slid down. The darkness swallowed me whole. I blacked out, or maybe I just lost track of time. When I came to, the sun was shining weakly through the cabins. Broken windows. The door, once sealed tight, now swung open, creaking on its rusted hinges like nothing had happened. I scrambled outside, heart pounding, but the snow was undisturbed. No footprints except my own. My backpack was on my shoulder. My jacket was dry and warm, but the crawl space was empty. No skeleton, no sign anything had been down there. I didn't understand it. I still don't. Was it a hallucination? A trick of the storm or something worse? I left that cabin behind, silent as the snow-covered trees. I haven't told a soul. I don't know if I want to. But sometimes, when the wind howls just right, I hear that voice again, my voice whispering from the shadows. That cabin wasn't abandoned. It never really was. And whatever it was, it followed me home.